But this way of working with integrations is very powerful. The customer can then decide of how to puzzle all the pieces together to make a really, really powerful solution from things that are very specialized and very good in their own respective areas. When we realized that it was very easy to connect the two systems thanks to the open API approach that you have today and the ease of integration between third-party visualization and a full CPQ, it was a no-brainer to get this first customer started.
You want a quote, why would you not want a detailed drawing of what your product is going to look like? You want it all to be done automatically because in some extreme cases, 80% of the quotations go to waste. They want the visualization, they need everything that CPQ entails. Team DynaMaker, welcome. Could you please introduce ourselves for our audience here?
Sure, my name is Hugo. I work with the sales, marketing and partnership at DynaMaker.
Yeah, and I'm Kristofer. I'm the CEO and founder of the DynaMaker product here. So,
Could you tell me something about the backstory of DynaMaker?
We built this cloud service to enable visual configuration and CAD automation in the cloud because we saw that there was a couple of years back it was like this blank space in the digital sales world where you couldn't bring your CAD technology up to the cloud.
Market was ready for a next step.
Exactly, like there was, you have this legacy CAD technology and you have this browser environment where you do all the digital sales today. And we designed the DynaMaker to be a tool to bridge that gap and enable visual configuration and complex configuration together with some CAD automation.
Can you tell me what your typical customer looks like? Like who needs a DynaMaker solution?
So the typical customer is a manufacturing company, usually small to medium sized, that have customizable products. So they can be customizable in dimensions or something like that. And we see that it's selling those kind of products is really time consuming and it takes a lot of effort for sales and for engineering to create quotations and also make it understandable, and that's where we have DynaMaker to kind of help with making the configuration really easy to understand with the visual part, and also making like the CAD documentation around the quotation, so PDF files for the quotation or step files and stuff like that, to automate that to really save time on these customized products.
Yeah, it makes sense. In a lot of cases, for some companies, it might be 80% of the quotations they send out result in nothing. So that's a very cumbersome process that you want to automate, and that's where you focus, right?
Exactly. And we also see that lots of the complex configuration revolves around things that are made to measurement and assembled to order. And this is where traditional visualization usually fails. You need the flexibility of the CAD technology to set the size and the height and the width of things. And this is what we have worked hard with the DynaMaker to enable.
Before we dive into some more questions, I think it's important to outline how we both do configuration. We both focus on configuration, but how we are different and why we fit together so well. Could you explain me something about the configuration that you do?
So we are focusing very much on like the visual part, and like, so one part is like making the customer understand what the configuration is about, like how is the product affected by like the user inputs, what happens when you change the numbers and like the model changes or scales and stuff like that. It's very something that we see it is very engaging for the customer. It makes it understandable what you're doing. So that is one of the points, and there's also like the automation that comes from this visualization, so we can take what is visualized with the dimension and everything and create CAD files from those. So we are very much focused on like the visual CAD and like making sure that this works well in like a CPQ environment which has like all the rules and the pricing and quoting and that kind of stuff. So it really is like two worlds that complement each other quite well.
That's very well phrased. To me, it feels like Elfsquad, we have been focusing on the rule engine, the configuration models, the stuff around the commerce side of things, managing your dealers, the whole CPQ side of things from the beginning. We've not looked into visualization that much. And you've been focused on bringing the best parametric visualization options to the cloud. It's match made in heaven, right?
Exactly. And I think there's so much more you need from digital sales than just the visualization and the configuration of the model, you need the whole commerce part.
Yeah.
That's where the CPQ comes in.
Yeah, one can't go without the other. Kristofer, could you tell me something about how this partnership came to be? What the first collaboration looked like?
Yes, we had a mutual customer that was evaluating both systems too, because they needed advanced CPQ and configuration, and they needed the flexibility of CAD to make everything made to dimensions. And since DynaMaker it's made to enable mass customization, it was a really good fit to get this software to work together. So that's how it came to be, and when we realized that it was very easy to connect the two systems thanks to the open API approach that you have today and the ease of integration between third-party visualization and a full CPQ, it was a no-brainer to get this first customer started.
You could say, in this case, Elfsquad could be seen as an extendable. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you have the core, which is really powerful, which handles all the commerce, the configuration, and this type of thing. But then you can extend it with many different types of modules, where DynaMaker could be one, of course. But this way of working with integrations is very powerful in our regard, because the customer can then decide of how to puzzle all the pieces together to make a really, really powerful solution from things that are very specialized and very good in their own respective areas. So.
You're describing best of breed here, and I think it's important to stress that it's not just a trend. Why is it important to embrace a best of breed strategy for you as a software vendor too?
Bringing CAD technology to the browser is hard, right? And that's why we have focused a lot on this, to bring the instant visualization up and make things dynamically change in size with the visual configuration, but also keep automating from that, doing drawings, doing BIM files, doing other types of CAD export fully automatically from the CPQ. That is a big field to tackle anyhow. It's a lot of technology, and this is where we have specialized, and we keep focusing on automation downstream, enabling more flexible supply chains all the way out to manufacturing. So for us, it's a natural to specialize in this area, because that's big enough, and we try to be the best in this area, of course. And I think it makes sense to do the same approach with the CPQ. There's a lot of aspects of our digital sales tools that needs to be refined, and together it brings out a lot of value for the customers.
We both have our focus, and with our focuses combined, we realize synergy, right?
Exactly.
What do you think the benefits would be for a customer, the benefits of best of breed?
I think that you can get like lots of value out of the solutions, and get like the really, as you say, like the really expert in each field to bring the best to the customer. And I think like also, as we said, like building this kind of network of different services that help you achieve your goals, no matter who you are. And it's also more standardized. There's more best practices and stuff that you can easily use to implement this in your organization.
And I think also that it's a quickly changing environment, right? The world is developing really fast. Yeah. So what's happening today, tomorrow will look totally different. And that's why you need to keep puzzling, keep adding, removing things that doesn't work.
Definitely.
And I think that's one of the best survival strategies now for modern software, to keep puzzling these different services together until you have a solution that's really good, and then keep changing and adapting it while the world changes. And I think most of our customers are really happy with this way of working, because they get very specialized puzzle pieces. And if one puzzle piece doesn't work, exactly, you swap it, and that brings out the best in us. It brings out the best in you, and it brings out the best in the other puzzle pieces.
Modularity doesn't only work for manufacturing companies.
Nope.
The same applies to the IT guys. DynaMaker really is about the two capabilities, the parametric visualization and the CAD exports. Could you tell me something about the added value of those two?
And we see that especially when you have things that are made to dimension, you have, so let's say somebody's building doors, for example, and they want to make them to dimension. If you set the size, like width and the height, actually seeing what that looks like, it brings a lot of safety or understand it. Like it means that people that are not expert at doors can start configuring doors, quoting doors, selling doors without being worried about what they do. And whatever rules you put into the configuration model, it will be there doing the magic.
To guide them too.
Exactly, and it will never get the wrong configuration, but you need to see how the thing will look.
Yeah.
So the visual part is really important to understand and explain what this is all about. The second part of this is, since it's CAD technology we're talking about, you can also get all this type of automated export, like getting a quotation drawing instantly from this, or getting a BIM file or a step file or whatever visualization format you would like, and use that for the quote or for internal processes that you have internally. And this is something that we see saves a lot of time, because people have to do this manually today unless they have an automated approach. It makes sense to do this together with the CPQ and the visualization, like it's connected together.
Yeah, you want a quote, why would you not want a detailed drawing of what your product is going to look like? And you want it all to be done, or as a company, you want it all to be done automatically. Because in some extreme cases, 80% of the quotations go to waste.
And we see that the more quotes you do, the better solutions you quote. So with a fully automated system, a client could make 3 quotes and take the best of that solution instantly, instead of doing 1 quote and being unsatisfied with that and then go to a competing vendor. So having this speed in the CPQ, where you go full circle for the quote with all the technical documents, the CAD, according to the rules of the configuration model, it brings a lot of order and sales. Like you win more deals, and you make better offers thanks to this automated loop.
Yeah, and faster offers too.
Faster offers.
Yeah, like it might take the same time to configure your product, but it will guarantee huge wins in throughput time, in lead time for a quote to reach a customer, because the customer can help himself.
Yeah, and the channel is always ready, always online. It's always working for you, so it's a real time saver, and it's a convenience, especially now that everything is connected. People are working remotely on other times or in other time zones. It's really easy to be there for the customer in like a scalable way. Exactly.
Yeah.
And we also see that the more complex products you make, the more important it is that it's actually those rules and like all the design that you have and thinking you put into this product needs to be reflected in the sales tools, because that's what makes you sell this type of complex product without making errors, without making them do the wrong things. That's also, you need the 3 parts, like the configuration, the CPQ, the visualization, and the CAD automation to do these type of things, made to measurements.
Kristofer, could you elaborate on where DynaMaker sits on the visualization spectrum in CPQ? When do you need parametric visualization?
That's a good question. Like, it usually comes down to how many variants are you showing. Like if you have just a few variants, no matter what type of product you have, you can go with pretty pictures, right? You can just take a nice photos, put it in. And then if you have a larger number of variants, but still a limited number,
still an overseeable amount.
Exactly. Then you can have a 3D model for every, and this is something that Elfsquad CPQ and most other CPQ solutions have as a standard feature, showing the 3D models. Where the DynaMaker comes into the picture is when you add just 1 parameter, saying length or height or pretty much anything, then your variants will go to infinity.
Yeah,
you will need so many models to do this unless you bring in CAD. And this is where we see that the more complex your configuration gets, the more choices you have, the variance increases, then it makes more sense to bring in the flexibility of a CAD-driven solution like the DynaMaker. And then you just connect this with height, depth, colors, and this type of thing to the proper visualization properly. And then you will have a few models handling all these different variants. And then you can automate from there. So what we see here is a live demo, a very basic demo of how this could look in the Elfsquad CPQ. So if you visit the homepage, this is actually the public showroom. If you go in there and the customer wants to configure this, they just have to change a few parameters, like in this case a garage door. set the width, set the height within the limits of what's actually manufacturable, and you will instantly see what this will look like.
This is real time?
Yeah, this is real time. So this is what's the benefits of having this instant sales visualization, but it's not fixed models, you see. It's dynamic and parametric. So whatever you do, it will be updating the CAD models instantly. And when you're done with the visual part, you could perhaps toggle other views. It doesn't have to be 3D, right? You could have parametric 2D.
No.
It's equally beneficial in some ways, explaining some of the hard details and hard to understand details of the product. And when you have filled in all the details, usually there are much more input fields like this.
Yeah.
This is a very, very basic example. You might want to get exactly this as a technical document. So in this case, just export the CAD file or the technical drawing, because now the customer will have the proof of what they just configured to go with the quoting document. And we see lots of companies spend hours to complement each quote with this, and then you have to wait for days until you have it.
Usually this is a manual process.
Exactly.
Like visualization is one step, that's great, but well, I'm seeing it right now. I want my drawing right now too, but that usually takes a few days in lead time for an engineer to boot up an on-prem instance and make some custom drawings. That's great.
And this took 1 second.
It did, yes, we saw it. It took 1 second.
And I think that's the beauty of it. Like, you have CPQ, who has all the power of the commerce, you have the rules of what you want to sell and what is manufacturable and what is actually the thing you want to promote. And then you get this instant loop of both the visual part and the CAD automation for completing the sales cycle and send the quote in minutes.
I have, as a customer, I have everything I need. I need to know to approve the quote, to be done with it. No more waiting needed.
And we see that having these type of configurations, like either publicly or for the sales team, it's like the tip of the iceberg. It's like this brings order and control, even if it's flexible, right? You have sizes, but everything is controlled by rules. This is the starting point to automate pretty much every step throughout the factory if you want to and see benefits of it. But without this start point at the CPQ, you will never get around to solve the rest of the automation problems.
We all know the famous quote, garbage in, garbage out, and this guarantees that no garbage goes in.
Exactly. So we decide on what you want to sell by doing the rules in the configuration model, and that's what brings model, without being inflexible, right?
No, there's lots of flexibility, but neither would you want all flexibility here. This brings me to an important topic, how DynaMaker might be confused with traditional CAD, but I think it's important to stress that traditional CAD is for birthing products, designing new products. It has all the details, it has all the tools and flexibility to R&D something, to build something bottom up. How is DynaMaker different, and why is it different from that?
Exactly. The origin is pretty much the same as I say. It's a parametric description of the product, like having all the rules and how it should work. But as you said, the traditional CAD is used for R&D, and it should be keep using it for R&D and controlling all the details of the design. But while you put it into the sales tools, you need a different approach. It needs to be online, it needs to be scalable, it needs to be lightweight, it needs to be fast.
A technical question. There is no CAD workers behind this or anything?
No,
this is all in the cloud,
you
right?
only need the DynaMaker because of we have our own lightweight geometry kernel that is built for the CPQ and the e-commerce world. So it's meant to work in this online environment and scale with this type of thing. And this, I think, is one of the advantages of our approach. It's easy to add, it's very cost effective to have in the process, and it adds a lot of value directly to the CPQ. So even if it's basis the same type of mathematics that runs a traditional CAD technology, we use it in an entirely different way when it's going for the sales.
Yeah, this isn't like an automation tool. It's very much focused on like doing the same, helping with the same process all over again, creating these visualization and the CAD exports in a really automated and scalable manner.
Yeah, the fundamentals might be the same compared to traditional CAD, but if you think about it, it's weird that the manufacturing is moving from engineer to order to configure to order to mass customization, yet they're still sticking with the same old tools that were meant to facilitate ETO,
Exactly.
engineer to order.
And all this, as you mentioned, it's like the traditional CAD software should be free and flexible, right? It's a clever engineer who should put in the know-how how to build the product. They don't want any constraints. But once you sell it, you need to have all those insights and rules.
You need the guidance.
Exactly. So then you have to constrain it, but without losing the flexibility. And that's the sweet spot that we see for this type of solutions today.
And for enabling scalability. Like take out all the stuff that you don't need from a traditional CAD. Let the users do it themselves, but within the existing boundaries that the engineers came up with the traditional CAD.
Exactly. And you keep developing this, you keep adding new rules, you realize that this is something you want to sell. It's a cycle, right? You keep developing. You need these clever guys and girls to keep building the digital sales tools and the products and take responsibility for this type of thing throughout the whole product life cycle. And this is something these tools should help with, not work against. So.
And also having the tools frees up all of the time to be creative and develop the tools and make sure that the tools are up to date and developing new products to put in there. So it's really like a positive feedback loop in that sense.
We have met very few sales engineers who are happy with copy pasting the same old drawing all day. So, but
when it is understandable, like automate the mundane, right?
Exactly.
Hugo, this might be a funny one, but what is it that customers are asking for when they approach you? And what are the challenges they're actually dealing with?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Like, as we are like a very visual product we're working with, they usually talk about like 3D and like we need 3D on the web and that type of problem. But what we often discover is that they need somewhere to put the 3D. Usually they don't have a CPQ or like a really competent e-commerce solution. So what we're seeing is like, yes, you need a 3D maybe to explain stuff to the customer, but you also need like the entire digital sales enablement environment, which is a CPQ with the rules, you need the modeling, you need creating quotations, you need to manage the users, and then you put a nice 3D and CAD automation in there. So there's lots of discovering to do together with the customer to understand what they actually need to be, like having a completely digital, always on sales solution.
They want the visualization, they need everything that CPQ entails. Right?
Definitely.
Exactly. And since the technology is developing so fast, like many manufacturing companies, they are fully focused on their internal tools and how they develop. Exactly. And this is a new world for a lot of companies that we meet, and this we try to help showcase it because there's so many good ways of tackling this.
Yeah, and like that's where like the CPQ plus visualization part really comes in hand, like having these partnerships to see that we have two different tools that go really well together, and it's really easy to get on board with the customer as well and get the value of both.
And you might think you need only one, but you'd be way better off with the synergy of the both.
Exactly.
Kristofer, could you tell me some highlights of our current product combination?
Yeah, right now we see that it's the instant visualization and getting to see your complex model change every time you use the tool. That is one of the biggest value add right now. And then people adding more and more automation to this, getting the quote drawings and the CAD files and the BIM files automatically, and creating more automated processes. And I think that's where most of our clients are today, getting the full sales cycle automatically with the CPQ.
What do you think the future of our partnership would look like if they get the basis right, if we get the fundamentals right for our customers?
Yeah, and there's so many ways you can apply the technology and do more complex visualizations, interactions, drag and drop, all these type of things. Those are supported today, of course. But what we think is the most important part about the future is to make things simpler to set up, simpler to manage, simpler to use as those administrating it and developing these type of sales tools. So I think that is one of the biggest parts in the future journey for us together as well.
Saving even more time.
Exactly, and enabling more people out there in the manufacturing companies to set up the CPQ and the CAD visualization in a smart way.
How would you describe our end goal, our dot on the horizon?
Yeah, I think and we think that when you apply this technology correct in a smart way, this is the enabler for true mass customization. Like, we think that the factory of the future will be local, manufactured, distributed manufacturing, but it will also be flexible and fully automated. And this is the thing that enables that future.
That's a brilliant note to end on. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for being here and discussing what the future of configuration visualization looks like.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.